Assalamu alaikum and Yali Madad. I'm your host, Syed Jamil Ahsan, and I welcome you on behalf of QAIM TV in today's episode of discussion with Dr.Naweed Syed. These discussions are in line with QAIM TV's Vision 2050 Maktab Ahlebait, alayhi salam. And we have today a panel. On our panel is Ibrahim Rizvi, who's a student of grade 10, Sami Naqvi, who's a student of grade 12, and Faryal Zahra. She's a second year undergrad student. Welcome, everyone. And of course, our respected Dr. Naweed Syed with us is with an expert as an expert. We'll be during the program. We will be talking to him about different aspects, which we're going to share with you now. So in our introductory program, we charted out discussion topics as which would be education, job seeking, succeeding in a job, the next steps of growth, and so on. So keeping in line with those discussion points, today we will start our discussion on our first topic, that is education, which of course is the foundation stone to the success, And here we're talking of both academic and religious education. And of course, I would now turn to Dr. Saab to start with a question of my own, which will open up this discussion for today. Dr. Saab, how would the world look like in 2050, and what can youth of Maktab Ahlebait expect and prepare for?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I really like to thank you, Jamil Bhai, for hosting this program, and also Al-Qaim TV for their vision, which is actually Vision 2050. And I think it's a really great topic. And what a joy and a privilege and honor it is to be in the company of these young, bright, minds in our community. I think they are the future. They are the gift of Imam Zamana to us. And I think we need to do everything in our capacity to make sure we empower them to succeed. And I think that really is the key aspect of this particular program series of programs. And our youth, especially sitting here, they're mashallah smart, they're intelligent. As I said in the last program, they're highly resourceful, and they're also very well connected, and they know where the field is already heading. But oftentimes the choices that they see in the academia, in the schools, in colleges, universities, they often get them paralyzed, and they get confused as to which particular area I should really go into. Where can I make the most impact? In last program, we talked about Wayne Gretzky's example that, somebody asked him, how come you have that many assists? And he said, I don't pass puck to my partner where he is, but where he's supposed to be. Can you imagine that if the puck is given to the, one of the fastest skating player where he is, and he's skating so fast, the puck actually drops behind, and then it gets taken by the other team on the blue line, and it's scored against you. So we need to make sure that we get you prepared. And I think that really is the essence of this particular program, is that we should empower our youth to be able to see where the field is going to go in the next few years. So I'm going to actually make you uncomfortable. I'm going to make you a little bit out of, get you out of your comfort zone. And that is really what the idea is. So, that the COVID-19 has brought a lot of problems. The world is going through deglobalization. It is going through deurbanization. Our technologies and techniques are also changing. And the time has lapsed in between that we don't have much information in terms of where the world is heading in terms of technologies and areas. And I can tell you that, we are looking at, when we look at maybe the healthcare sector or any other sector, those days are gone where you could specialize in one particular area and carve out your career. You could, medicine, engineering, social sciences, arts, and all the other fields you thought that you could go in and specialize, those days are gone. Now it's really important to understand that now integrated learning is where all disciplines are coming together, are the one that will equip you with the skill sets that you would need to survive in, the 2020 to 50, where the world is heading. To give you an example, that what we see in our, for example, hospitals and in the areas, what we see is that the future really of precision health is becoming a one-stop shop, what we call in terms of a knowledge hub or a knowledge mall. We are developing these biosensor technologies whereby a small sensor that could be part of your body can detect your vital signs and communicate with doctors and then the healthcare systems. We're also developing these tiny little capsules that you can take, and these capsules can go into your body and they can examine your entire body and go through your GI tract to be able to tell the doctors and send this information outside as to whether you have polyps, and then it can also operate in doing the surgery. We are now thinking about immunotherapies, for example. These technologies are becoming so important to treat cancer, how to kill a cancer cell using nanoparticles. So you can see now here that the quantum physics has come into medicine. Medicine has gone into your body. And then we also think about, genomics, for example. I can take the blood samples from a pregnant mother. I can then predict from blood samples the baby that is yet to be born, whether that baby is going to have any kind of genetic abnormalities. So then what do? We can then use actually CRISPR technology to be able to go in and fix that defective genes. So again, you can see the bioinformatics, computation and computing power is coming into place to be able to really, again, tie down with the area of medicine. We will have, for example, digital and telehealth. With 5G technology coming on board, the things that we thought were actually not realistic, they are becoming a reality now, whereby you could really use the quantum and cloud computing to be able to perform remote surgeries. So a surgeon sitting in Calgary, for example, can operate on a patient sitting in Ottawa or in Toronto or Montreal. And similarly, I think, artificial intelligence, machine learning is becoming such an important tool in the future that these will be absolutely essential no matter which particular field you go into. So I think the idea really here is that the world is changing very, very fast and rapidly. We need to really adapt to these technologies whereby, the entire world comes to a handheld device, and you will be able to really function only if you are familiar with these technologies. So I think the children really need to think about not just one particular area, but the learning and education is becoming integrated. And then what a beautiful example is it that this is how Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam's class used to be. In his classroom, there will be 19 different classes happening at the same time. And they will be teaching different aspects, and students will go from class to class, and they will go and sit in a particular class that would allow them to be able to really align their personal interest with the area of expertise, what they really want to know. And this is one of the reasons that in his, under his stewardship and education system, Islam produced some of the most brilliant polymaths. These people were experts in multidisciplinary areas: astronomy, physics, chemistry, medicine. When we think about Abu Ali Sina, at the age of 10, he was Hafiz al-Quran. And at the age of 16, he was practicing medicine. And he knew astronomy, physics, and other subjects. So really the important take home or message for you guys is that when you are studying, go with open mind and try to live your own dream and not the dream of other people. And people oftentimes, when it was the time for MBA, everybody ran and did their MBA. Then there was a time when people went to IT. Everybody dashed in that. The fields get saturated. All of a sudden, it becomes a bottleneck, and then you will have a hard time finding. So the important really thing is that look for where the most education can add most value to humanity. And we will talk about in the subsequent, programs, we will eliminate these ill concepts that in the Shia faith or in religion, you're only confined to study fiqh or only confined to study, how to perform salat and do and this. Our religion, Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, put equal emphasis. If nothing else, when I read his ahadith, I find that he put more emphasis on modern sciences than anything else. So I think this is something that we have to go in with open mind. In the next, till 2050, the world will be completely different. And we need to prepare you so you could adapt to that world to the best of your abilities.
Thank you for that, Dr. Saab. Mashallah, great insight. But that raises a couple of questions in my mind. And I'm sure the kids will be having their own questions. I will let them gather their thoughts on their questions. But to me, the first thing that comes to, even for me, it was the first time hearing some of these new fields and emerging fields and developments that are coming up. What do the youth of today do? How do they get this information? What are they searching? Are there any digests or websites or things that they can start looking into that would get them into a habit of keeping abreast with whatever is going on in the world, in the field of education, health, science, and so on. So if you can say a few words on that, and then I have a secondary question to ask.
That's a great question. And I think, like I said, we're so proud of our youth. These students or youngsters are really light years ahead of us in terms of, knowing all where the field might be heading. But, there is Scientific American, there are many other scientific magazines. If you just Google to find out what are the top 10 technologies that have evolved over the COVID, period, or what will be the next 10, 15 years technologies on the horizons that are coming into market, that will add the most value to our humanity and also to our economy as well. So it's really quite easier. And if they're interested in, we could split in maybe in the future some section where we could provide them, maybe run a PowerPoint and also a video whereby we can actually help them see what it is that they could then find themselves doing in the future. So I think it's not really that difficult to find. You just have to, type the top 10 technologies on Google, and it will give you all the top 10, 20, 25 technologies that will be the future of humanity.
No, perfect, Dr. Thank you. And of course, I think because today's generation are visual learners, I think that would be a great idea. And if you can put together a slide that or some information that we can communicate to them, we'll request QAIM TV's technical team to give us some ideas on that so that we can communicate that to our youth. Ibrahim, I did see your hands raised, but let's wait till the question and answer session because I have one more question for Dr. Saab. So we've talked about 2050, what is happening, and so many new things and new dimensions to education and science coming in. Is there a magic combination of academic and religious education that would lead the followers of Maktab-e Ahlebait to success when we reach 2050?
That's again a brilliant question. As you read through Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam's teachings, he was the first to establish a formal university. And that was first of all in the Mosque of Prophet, peace be upon him. Then he moved to Kufa. So he considered science and literature as two of the most important component of his system of religious education. Imam also believes that there are essentials, these aspects were essential for raising the status of human beings and making them into good citizens. So, the purpose of education in the eyes of our imams was to prepare us as a good citizen. And it was his firm conviction that in an educated society, there is respect for right of others and mutual cooperation and trust among the members. And that is something really, really important. Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, he believed that his system of education, which had 4 important subjects, and the number 1, theology, science, literature, and irfan. These were, he believed, to be the essential for the strength and survival of Islam, as well as for service to society. And he also deemed that these were really the structure or the pillars of any education system. And when you read about, his teachings, he defined knowledge, as follows, that whatever a person learns is knowledge. And when somebody asked him, well, what kind of knowledge was more important than the others? And the Imam said, we cannot give preference to one kind of knowledge over the other. All of them are important, but they differ in their usefulness. And in our time, he said, 2 important and the useful branches of knowledge are medicine and religion. That was at the time of Imam. He also said that the time will come when human beings would benefit from other branches of knowledge as well, although they were not much used in those days in that time. So he's also really talking about, what lies ahead and what is the current need. And that is for all humans to put their resources, their knowledge, expertise together to solve real world problems. So he deemed to be, the knowledge to be contingent upon practical utility of that time. So the knowledge that he always said is the knowledge that is useful, and also knowledge that brings you closer to Allah, the service to humanity and closer to Allah, he deemed to be the best. And I think this is such a beautiful thing, because normally people will tell you, go and do IT, go and do, quantum physics, go and do this. Imam left this open to us because Imam knew the time, the needs will change. And we saw during COVID-19, when coronavirus came, we put all our humanity and resources to develop vaccines. So I think all of a sudden vaccine was not on our radar. Even Canada doesn't have a vaccine production facility. All of a sudden that became the necessity. So I think it's the open question is that what are the real world problems? How can we put our resources together to be able to solve those problems? So Imams have left this open to us in terms of problem solving, attributes.
Perfect, mashallah. What I want to do is today do the program a bit differently. Normally we would have a question and answers session for you at the end of the program, but I will definitely, because one of the questions that that would come to mind is, we have provided so much information in the last 15 or 10 minutes. Is there something that's bothering their mind? Is there something that's tickling their fancy, to think on it? So I would just open up for one question, and since it's her first time, I would ask Faryal Zara here to ask a question if she had something in mind.
Yes, assalamu alaikum everyone. So being a university student, I always wonder that, because choosing your program in university is okay, whatever you've chosen is the path you're gonna be on. So I'm always confused, or I worry about the fact that what if in the future I'm whatever I chose is not what it's not getting me to where I want to be, because I was a science student all my school life, and then I changed to arts for university. So I'm always confused. I'm okay, should I go back to science or should I stay with arts? Because in my head it's is it hard to get into science field after, or would it get hard for me to focus on? So there are these questions in my head. So my question would be how did your earlier career educational choices affect your present research, and do they play a major role? A university student should really focus on the program they're choosing, or is there always an option to go back and change their choice?
That's a beautiful question, Farel. May Allah bless you. I think it's, this opens up a whole kind of a series of interesting topics for us to talk. So you studied science, but then you switched to a different discipline. That's okay. I think it's okay to change your mind because you don't know which particular area that you would like the most until and unless you try it. And, oftentimes, unfortunately, in our communities, we tend to live our, parents' dream, and also peer pressure in the society puts the pressure on you. Oh, if you're not a doctor, nobody will respect you. If you're not an engineer, if you don't have a decent job. I think, you may not be able to, or I may not be able to go to, moon or land on the moon or Harvard or Stanford or be a, rocket scientist, but I still have the opportunity to be a decent human being. And I think this is what the education and the teachings of our Masumin is, that your education should give you akhlaq, moral codes of conduct, honesty, integrity, all of these aspects. Any school system can actually teach you. Once you have this, then you can go and fish for which particular area that your passion aligns you. Personally, I tell you about myself is that, what helped me to do well, are the same things that got me in trouble when I was young. And I could tell you, I would get in a lot of trouble doing things. And I always give this example that I had this cuddly toy, which was a dog, and it was attached to a cord. And I was the only kid in the neighborhood who had this, in a small town. And whenever I pressed that button, the dog will hop, 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 and then woof, woof, and it will turn left and right. All the kids will gather, and I will do, a show and tell, and everybody will be impressed. And I will take that toy away, and their hearts will be broken, and I will put it away. And one day my mother caught me actually opening it up, and I opened it up, and she yelled at me and says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Mom, I think I can fix it." And she said, "You have no clue. You don't have no electrical experience or engineering or electronics. How can you fix this?" And I said, "Mom, somebody put it together in the first place. How hard it is to put it back?" And of course, my older brother yelled and said, "Somebody gonna get hurt real bad, somebody." And I knew that was me. But the point was that, whenever your curiosity and your interest in a particular area, it perked you, that's how you will know that this is what makes me come alive. And I said the last time too, what the world really needs is the people who have come alive. It doesn't matter which discipline or area or the subject you're studying, you need to stay in the top 10%. Stay in the top 10% and you will succeed in your careers, no matter what you do. And so this is really something important, is that you need to be really fearless and not worry about, what people will say and what, the society will say, what family will say, that why are you studying? You should be studying medicine. Also to really the ability to take well-calculated risks without fear is another key to your success in the future. And the ability to kind of face that risk without panic. So don't panic in the second or third year, oh, maybe I made the wrong choice. Just stick to persevere, regardless of how, many failures you come across. I always tell people that, if you want to succeed, double the rate of your failures. You should not be afraid of failing or trying something that you're really so passionate about. So I think, your question is really very good, that, how does one really know? You will know one day. You will wake up, you say, I really love what I do, and I am going to do what I love. So I think this is something that's important in you. Try it out. You can always switch your areas and disciplines and fields. If it doesn't really align with your career goals or with your aspiration, but more importantly, if it doesn't align with your passion. Without passion, you will really hate your job. So many doctors come, Pakistani doctors that come and see me, and they say, I have an X5, I live in an acreage, I have everything, but I hate my job. When this beeper goes, I just want to throw it out. I didn't want to become a doctor. Just my parents made me become a doctor. So I think don't live that kind of life. Don't live that kind of career. Try everything out and see what you really like. And I would say just go and do it.
MashaAllah, Dr. Sahab, very good response, and I'm sure the kids and participants, they will be getting a lot, but it actually raised a question in my mind before I let Ibrahim take his turn. So let's say this is happening. There is another aspect to it, which is the financial aspect. Right? So while we're switching, on some of us, there would be pressures, financial pressures. What are those pressures? How do we manage that? How do the young kid manage that? Like, not all of them have the privilege of being with their parents and their parents helping out. There are some who don't have that, and they want to finish their education and get into a job so that they can start earning and have financial stability.
I think, again, a great question. I always say that any leader's ability to achieve their goals and objectives doesn't come from empty pockets. It's usually the empty heart. So I think, relating back to Farial's, question, when I finished my master's, family, wanted me to do different things. Jobs were being offered to me because I was a double gold medalist. I did really well. But I didn't want to really go and sell medicine for other people. I don't know, drug selling and this kind of stuff, not the drugs, but the actual medicine. And I didn't want to do this. So, I took a one-way ticket, which I actually collected from my own pocket money. And one-way ticket, no fees, no money. And I took a flight to come to England to do my PhD. And my family said, "Ye kya kar rahe ho? What are you going to do? You have no money. You never even fried an egg for yourself. How are you going to survive?" Of course, you come to England, my first flight experience, I land in England and I see no brown person, all white people. And I didn't even know really how to use the telephone at that time because it's all sophisticated system. So that was a big shock, and I had no money. My supervisor said, "So how are you going to pay £7,000 fees for your PhD the first year?" So then he said, "Look, our university gives one scholarship to a graduate who graduated from other than Leeds. There will be kids from Oxford, Cambridge, Bristol, Manchester. Go and knock yourself out." And that's all he said, to go knock yourself out. So I go into this room and there are these big 30 professors, all department heads sitting there, and my legs are really going jelly, and I've never given a talk. And they said, "Tell us what it is that you did during your master's." I went in there and I said, first of all, Nadia Ali, I went in. When I went in and I said to them, "Look, language of victimization is the biggest victimizer. I'm not going to put down my country, my university, the equipment that I did not have." But I can tell you one thing. We did not have the luxury like you have to have animals delivered in your laboratories. We had to go to the desert. We will pour water. These lizards will come and they will be all over the place, and I will run to catch them. And look, these are the bites. They will bite me. They will strike me. But we will bring them in the lab and we'll do the experiment. So I was so ingrained and passionate about my work. So when I finished my talk, a half an hour later, they all stood up and they clapped for 10 minutes. I got my full scholarship. I got my house allowance. I got my tuition paid. I got my, family allowance, child allowance. So I think, money always comes. Money should not be really, the major obstacle. What is the major obstacle is your own belief in your own abilities. If you believe in yourself, money will come. Money will come and money will find you. And this is what our Masumeens have also taught us, that, don't make these confines restrain you from flying. And so I think, this is what I would say. Yes, there are some issues. It may not be this year. You can still save, you can work part-time, you could do other things, but I can tell you, if you have the will, there will be a way. And Allah is musaddibul asbab. He creates asbabs for you. He creates the resources for you. If he sees that you are passionate, it actually your every aspect of your for example, your needs and desires gets met. So it is absolutely unequivocal. The only rate limiting factor is your faith and your ability in your own character and in your own attribute. So I think, money should not be an issue. And if there are issues, let us know. We will be able to help out in different ways, inshallah.
Jazakallah, Dr. Sahab. That's very encouraging. And of course, a lot of support from the older generations, like people like parents, educators, teachers, people like you. And I know we'll talk on someday. We'll find time to talk about the organization that you work for. I was reading Takmil, I believe his name. But we'll talk about that later. We've been keeping Ibrahim on hold for a long time. He's been raising his hands. So I guess he has a burning question. Ibrahim, can you open your mic and please give us your question?
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Grade 10, and I am very passionate about computers and gaming, basically designing games. I need to make a choice for my university field of study. My question was, what should I keep in mind while making these choices?
So again, Ibrahim, great question, and thank you for being with us. May Allah bless you. I think, I wish I had this passion that what you have in that technology. I wish I was as good as you are in terms of computer and then the games. The first brain surgery was done by a robot. It was done in our institute, in our group, in our team. And the haptics for that particular robot was designed by students who played games all the time. Grade 10, grade 9, and students who would play. And that really allowed them to be able to generate kind of, joystick, remote controlled robots that could perform, surgery inside the magnet. And these, of course, robots were made out of titanium. You guys heard about the Canadarm, right? The space station has that arm, the Canadarm. That is based on our technology that was developed at our institute. It's known as neural arm. So that arm actually goes inside, made out of titanium inside the magnet. Surgeon sits in a different room and he can actually operate. So your area of expertise is really aligned with where the future might be heading. Be that in the gaming industry, be that in the surgery, be that in robotics and other technologies. If that's your passion, I say go for it. And if you're good at it, you can only go from good to great in the area that you're good at, right? So if this is what your passion aligns, go for it. And then you will not only be exposed to, computer science or, learning about the algorithms, learning about artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of these aspects you will learn in terms of computation, big data, large data management. You will learn all these aspects, which will really become a very important tool. And then you could use these tools to be able to do whatever you want to do later in your career. Even in your university years, you could then decide what it is that you could really do. You have already expressed your strengths and your passion, and then what you're good at, I think you will go, inshallah, from good to great.
MashaAllah, Dr. Thank you so much for your answer, Ibrahim. Take that thought, and I'm sure you'll have to sell this idea of becoming a game designer to your dad. But if you need help, we're here. Going on to Sami. Sami, I've kept you waiting for a long time, but I'm sure by this time you have thought of 15 different questions, so we can only take one. So choose wisely and ask your question.
Okay, so assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum.
So Dr. Saab mentioned very beautiful points about how with the vision of 2050, we have so many emerging fields coming about. So we see the rise of technology coming. We see a lot of people going towards technology. Is technology a good field to go towards right now, or is that a field that might die out with too many people in it? Should we go towards technology, visioning to 2050, or is medical a good side to go into? What is or like the good sides we could go into?
So again, Sami, really excellent questions. You know, the most important thing that you are going to learn in your education system is how to learn to drive, right? So once you get the driver's license, you could just about go anywhere that you want to go. So I think learning these technologies or their know-how is prerequisite for any higher applications in the years to come. So, you know, right now, you can think about Google becomes almighty, all-knowing. You know, Google knows more about me than I know about myself, right? So if I tell you that, you know, the medication you're taking has this side effect, where would you go? You'll go to Google, right? And when we are talking, Google is listening. And as soon as I turn off, you know, this Zoom meeting, I will see all the ads about all the technology that I talked about on my Facebook. And so, you know, these things are becoming so kind of grandeur, but the basic thing is the fundamental skills, the mindset, your ability to think on your feet and develop independent thinking. If your education system does not prepare you, I mean, we don't prepare for the faculty of engineering or medicine, we prepare them for faculty of life. So I think your education system should prepare you to think independently. And once you start thinking independently, you will make your own choices, and those are the best choices to make in life.
Sorry, technologies, we're learning slowly at this, so I had my mute thing on and I forgot to turn it back on. In any case, thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for your detailed answer to these questions, and I'm sure for the next time the kids will have more questions in mind. And now that we are developing this topic, you know, we're learning too, is to, you know, to ask better questions so that we can get the answers from you. And I'm sure whatever questions you come up, you'll have an answer, but this will help us, you know, today's session definitely helped us to improve our questions. Now, I wouldn't to end this session, but I know that, you know, your great knowledge in poetry in Qasida, this being Rajab, I would like to end today's program with, if you can recite a few lines for us, that would be great.
Ooh, I think it's a, you know, I wish it was an Urdu program which I could recite, but for this particular, I think, occasion, I wrote a little, you know, freelance poem, and that was कि हमने तुझे जाना है तो हैदर की विला से, खिलकत के हों आसार या फिर नुक्ता-ए बा से, बिग बैंग से या कुन फयकूं की सदा से, वो नूर जो उभरा था कहीं अर्ज़ो समा से, यकजा हुआ फातिमा ज़हरा की रिदा से, कुरान की आयात से, इंजील और क़िसा से, रहमान से, तत्हीर से और सूरह निसा से, मनकुंतों की सदा से तो मौला की निदा से, सूरज के पलटने से तो तारे की अदा से, खैबर के लरजने से तो किले की फतह से, मरहब के तड़पने से तो अंतर की क़ज़ा से, हमने तुझे जाना है तो हैदर की विला से, वलहम से, अशम से, कौसर से, बकर से, इखलास व नास के लहजे के असर से, अल-नूर से, फुरकान से और आले अबा से, लुक़मान से, अहज़ाब से और यासीन व सबा से, अल-फतह से, अल-नज्म और कमल और नबा से, अल-फज्र व लैल व ज़ुहा और क़द्र से, अल-असर से, अल-फील से, अल-नस्र व तहा से, हमने तुझे जाना है तो हैदर की विला से, मुरसल की हिफाजत हो के उम्मत की शिफात, कुरान की आयात से, काबे की बका से, मीज़ान अदालत हो के मुश्किल की कुशा से, बारिश के बरसने से तो दामन की दाने की जिला से, सूरज की तमाज़त से तो तारों की हिना से, हमने तुझे जाना है तो हैदर की विला से, बिजली के चमकने से तो बादल की धमक से, शबनम की तहारत से तो फूलों की महक से, कलियों के चटकने से तो बुलबुल की चहक से, अफलाक पे छाए हुए रंगों की धनक से, हर सौम सलात हज व ज़कात और खुम से, हमने तुझे जाना है तो हैदर की विला से। अल खालिको अल बारियो अल अव्वल व आखिर, अल मालिको और राज़िको और शाफी व ज़ाहिर, अफलाक पे छाई हुई इस्मत की रिदा से, हमने तुझे जाना है तो हैदर की विला से. Now
Wow.
kids don't ask me to translate it. This is not possible.
Well, thank you so much. That was beautiful piece of poetry. Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, and thank you so much for our participants today, Ibrahim, Sami, and Faryal. Again, we welcome Faryal. It was a very pleasant experience to have a female voice on our program. Inshallah, we'll.
Before we end, actually, for the sake of kids, what I actually recited was that what it meant was that to recognize Allah, we had to recognize the attributes of Imam Ali alayhi salam, because we cannot directly reproach Allah. We had to go through Masumin. And when I talked about Nuqtai Ba, the actual, Ba is the dot. Somebody, Imam Ali alayhi salam, once said that whatever is in the Quran is in Surah Al-Hamd, whatever is in Al-Hamd is in Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and whatever is in Bismillah is actually the dot under Ba, the word, the alphabet Ba. That dot actually reflects, the Big Bang Theory's dot, which was the point that Allah says, we expanded universe from that dot. So when the dot was actually expanded, if you think about a dough that is sitting, you put a small sesame on the top. As this dough will expand, that dot sitting on the top will be able to see the creation of the entire universe. And that was the attribute of Maulai Kainat. He said this Kainat was created in front of my eyes. And that really is what I was trying to describe, the Nuqtai Ba, that dot. Be that the Big Bang Theory or whatever you call, Imam Ali said, I am Ana Nuqtatul Ba.
Wow, subhanallah. बेशक इस पे बड़ी लंबी और बहुत सारी इंफॉर्मेशन मौजूद है यकीनन, और मुख्तलिफ हम स्कॉलर से सुनते ही रहे। आज एक नए एंगल से डॉक्टर साहब से सुनी। थैंक यू सो मच डॉक्टर साहब, और थैंक यू इब्राहिम, समी एंड फरियाल। इस दुआ के साथ कि अल्लाह ताला आप सबको खुशियां दिखाए। I started in Urdu, Dr. Saab. You trained me into Urdu. I'm instructed to conduct this program in English. So in the end, with a prayer of a beautiful and prosperous and satisfying future for our youth, and an increase in tawfiqat of Dr. Saab, I take my leave, and inshallah we'll next week we'll be back with another session of discussion with Dr. Naweed Syed. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.